If you're like me and spent a lot of 2020, maybe too much of 2020, binge watching Netflix shows or rereading old favorites, this is the list for you. In this video, we'll talk about some of the more popular books and Netflix TV shows that if you like those, you're going to find some awesome reading for 2021. One of the biggest surprise shows to come out of 2020 was Enola Holmes. This is based off of a book series, so if you loved the TV show as much as I did, and you had to watch it like multiple times the weekend it came out, I totally did that too, you have to read the Enola Holmes book series. After you're done with that, pick out these books. The first one I'm going to talk about is A Study in Charlotte. This follows Sherlock Holmes and John Watson's great-great-grandchildren as they solve mysteries, and it has that same sort of feel as Enola Holmes does. Read this, especially if you really like the original Sherlock stories. Okay, the next book on your list should be The Enigma Game, and I know this is not an obvious one, but hear me out. This is a multi-perspective book that follows a bunch of different people in Scotland during World War II. There's this Air Force base, and one day a German pilot just lands on the Navy base claiming to have some information. And these three people kind of get thrown together to solve the mystery of what's known as the Enigma machine. If you like a little bit of mystery, if you like that little bit of historical context, if you liked how strong Enola was as a character, you are definitely going to love this book. And finally, if Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is the king of the mystery book, then Agatha Christie is definitely the queen. If you love old school classic mystery stories, you have got to read Agatha Christie. And I would totally suggest Murder on the Orient Express. Here is Lilia to talk more about that.
Hi, it's Lilia, and you should read Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. This is my favorite Christie novel. It fits into the mystery and a kind of like snowy day read category, and I think it's good for all ages. So this book is set on a train with passengers that all have connections to a past murder of a young girl. And on this train, there is a murder that occurs, but they're all stuck in the snow. And this book deals with mortality and putting the law into your own hands, and it's a very psychologically stimulating book.
If there's one thing the Teen Volunteer Group has taught me, it's that Percy Jackson is probably one of the best series on the planet. And if you, like a lot of them, are a Percy Jackson fan, here are a couple book series to try out. The first one is The Iron Trial. This is an action-packed book where these kids have to go through this trial to prove themselves, and it definitely has that same sort of fast-paced action vibe that Percy Jackson has. I personally love Mark of the Thief, and this is by Jennifer Nielsen. You'll see her coming up a lot in these book talk videos, but I chose this one because this is more of the Roman mythology, so if you like the second series of Percy Jackson, the Heroes of Olympus series, definitely the Mark of the Thief is your next book to read. There's a little bit of magic in there and a lot of Roman history. Loki's Wolves is kind of the Norse mythology version of that, and that is recommended for anybody who's into Norse mythology and loves the action-packed Percy Jackson books. And then, of course, there are all of these different Rick Riordan Presents books. And Sal and Gabby Break the Universe has been making a lot of noise this year. There's another book, Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. That one I think is even better, but read both of them and then tell me what you think is the best. And then this last one, Pegasus, the Flame of Olympus, is probably the most Greek mythology read-alike that I can think of to Percy Jackson, and Nancy is going to talk about that one next.
Hi, I'm Nancy, and the book I recommend is Pegasus, the Flame of Olympus by Kate O'Hearn. It is a book about a girl finding a Pegasus who crash-landed on her apartment roof in New York, and her going on a quest, in a way, or adventure to make sure she can protect this Pegasus to get it back to Olympus to save Olympus from attack. I really enjoyed this book because it was an interesting mix of fantasy and real world. It's kind of like the Percy Jackson series a little bit because it's set in New York and it has the gods in it. It's a very good book. I recommend at least being like 4th, 5th grade to start reading this book, but I enjoyed it in middle school, so anyone can enjoy this book.
American Girl and Little House on the Prairie are just perennial favorites. But if you want to level up your love of the Old West, try Prairie Lotus. This one is on the best of list for this year, and it definitely deserves its place. It's about a girl who is half white and half Chinese, and it's about what she faces when she goes into these cities that have never seen a person like her before. She has this dream where she wants to open a shop and make dresses, and there's all of these things that try to get in her way, but she perseveres, just like the heroines in American Girl and just like the Little House on the Prairie kids. If you haven't read Hatchet by the time you're in middle school, this is definitely a book to pick up, especially if you like wilderness survival stories and adventure books. When you're done with Hatchet, pick up Peak next. What's really cool is this book actually has a surprise fourth book that just came out this year. Peak is actually a guy who got his name because his father loves climbing mountains. And Peak has a habit of getting in trouble. And one of the ways to get out of trouble is to take this group up one of the most difficult mountain climbs ever. It is an awesome adventure survival story. So read Hatchet and then try Peak next. If you like Diary of a Wimpy Kid and think those books are hysterical, your next series or your next author to try is Stuart Gibbs. He actually writes a couple different series on here. He's got this camp series. He's got a couple different ones going, but Space Case just came out this year, and this has to be his best one yet. It is absolutely hysterical, really funny, and here's a video by Heather, one of our other librarians, talking about Space Case.
The first book I want to tell you about is our book club pick for this month, and it's called Space Case by Stuart Gibbs. So Dash and his fellow Lunarnauts, or Moonies, are the very first humans to live on the moon. You may think this would be the most exciting thing to ever happen to him, but it's not. In fact, Dash is so bored because kids aren't allowed to go onto the moon surface, so he spends his days cooped up inside the moon base trying to think of something fun to do and wishing something exciting would happen. And then it does, but unfortunately, it isn't the sort of excitement anyone would want. Moonbase Alpha's top scientist, Dr. Holt, turns up dead, and because he was on the brink of an important discovery, Dash is convinced he was murdered, but nobody believes him. Can he figure out what happened before it's too late? So this book is super funny, suspenseful, and has a fantastic mystery element. And if you're in grades 5 to 7, feel free to join us for book club.
Another great TV show to come out of 2020 was Julie and the Phantoms. Oh, I love a good show that actually has good singers in it. But what really made this show fun was the dynamics of all of the different characters in the band. But what would happen if they didn't get along, if they had creative differences? You should check out All Together Now if you want to run that what if. It's a lot like Julie and the Phantoms, except in this one, they get a new drummer for their band, and then everything starts falling apart. This is actually a graphic novel, but I put it on here because it is a read-alike for anyone who loved Julie and the Phantoms. Wings of Fire is easily one of the most popular series at the library, and we get a lot of people coming in to ask about read-alikes. You know, when you're done with Wings of Fire, what do you read next? Well, I have an awesome answer for you that just came out in the last year or so. It is Dragon Watch by Brandon Mull, and Brandon Mull writes a lot of fantasy books. He's written Fablehaven, he's written other stuff, but Dragon Watch is his newest series, and it reads so much like Wings of Fire. It has a lot of the same action and adventure that Wings of Fire has, and it's done by a master of fantasy books. If you're not so much a fantasy person, if you like realistic fiction, specifically books like Wonder, you have a couple different books to try out. The first one is Rules. It's about a girl whose brother is autistic and all the weird rules that her family has that other families really don't. The next book is Out of My Mind by Sharon Draper, and I love this author so much, but if you want an introduction to her, you've definitely got to read Out of My Mind. It's about a girl who can't really communicate verbally, so how does she reach people when she's not able to speak to them? These are great read-alikes if you want something that is going to pluck at your heartstrings like Wonder did. So everybody loves Marvel movies. I mean, seriously, name a person who doesn't love them. If you are a huge Marvel fan, did you know there's actually a ton of books out that featured the different characters in the Marvel movies. My personal favorite is Miles Morales Spider-Man by Jason Reynolds. And this one is about Miles. It takes place after the movie Into the Spider-Verse, and it's kind of like its sequel. So in this book, Miles is having a little trouble with his spidey senses, and something is definitely off. And he thinks his powers are actually going away, like there's a time limit. The spider bite only lasted so long kind of thing. In the meantime, he still has to battle the forces of evil and manage to keep up with his homework at the same time. So there's a lot going on in this book, and it has that same feel that all of the best Marvel movies do. Also, if you are into Star Wars books and other huge franchises, there are a ton of books coming out in those worlds. Like if you were obsessed with The Mandalorian like I was, you totally need to read some of the Star Wars books that have been coming out, especially ones like Ashoka that goes into her backstory. And you can find them all under Star Wars at the library. For more awesome book suggestions, go to www.cromaine.org, that's the Cromaine Library website, or check out the Teen Blog, which has tons and tons more reading recommendations. This has been Carolyn from Cromaine Library. Happy reading, and thank you so much for watching.